All right, Ms. Brindley, that meeting is yours. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Enter public session at 6:09. Roll call vote. Lincoln? Yes. Yes. Anthony? Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. The Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask that all members interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, Town of Scituate public meetings shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted following the meeting. Public comment will be available by Zoom. Community members can also email @brandolini@cit.org with questions. As last meeting, and will be kind of a standard protocol, I do have our public comment policy up at the desk. And all right, so we will start with public comment tonight. I will try to toggle as best that I can between Zoom participants and in person. So if anybody would like to start our meeting off with public comment, you can come to the chair and state your name and address or school affiliation, please.
Absolutely. My name is Patricia Waite, 695 PGA. One can say I have no affiliation because I have no children in school, or that my affiliation is with all the schools because I have taxpayer, and I understand that approximately 66% of the taxes go towards education, which would mean that since I've been here for 30 years, it's about $50,000. First, I really want to say that I support all the parents who are talking about smaller class sizes because I feel it's very, very important. Secondly, at the second school board meeting, the last school board meeting, every school's leader presented their improvement plans. There seemed to be little focus on academics. Let me share 2 items from Scituate schools that I have physically seen. They are not based on social media or rumors. The first is one from a multiple choice assignment. The sample about vocabulary was to talk about gender and sexuality. These would be answers to multiple choice questions. Androgyny, asexual, cisgender, genderqueer, heterosexism, gender expression, gender identity, intersex, pansexual, or transgender. The second item is the gender breakfast, which is a teaching tool for breaking the concept of gender into bite-sized textual pieces. Given its visual similarity to a gingerbread man, I would assume this is designed for younger children. From the genderbread person, we learn, among other things, that sex is assigned at birth, that there are a lot of options for sexual attraction or romantic attraction between women and or feminine and or female people. When students leave our schools, they will follow many paths in careers. Not all will enter the business world. But as a former executive of one of the largest tech companies in the world, here is what we look for when we're hiring people. Confidence, problem-solving ability, excellent communication and including direct grammar, and great technical skills found on a strong base in math and science. We do not look at whether one can identify the parts of the gender person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do just want to remind everyone during public comment that that we should be making sure that agenda it pertains to anything within the purview and scope of the school committee, and to that we will adhere to our policy of 3 minutes for public comment by each person. Anybody else?
Ms. Brent,
So we
Okay, good job.
all this talk is going on. It brought up something that I wanted to address, and I know it was a couple of years ago, but it's related to this in a way. My daughter Erin, by the way, she just graduated from Scituate. We had a good experience. She went K through 12. Overall, she got a lot out of it. But I'm just going to mention this one thing that happened. I think it was her freshman year. And it's related to this. The school made it very difficult. There was a speaker coming in the health education, health/sex education class, and there was a speaker coming in to talk about gender identity. And the school made it very difficult. We didn't want Erin in that class in front of that speaker that day, okay? And we were told we would have to come and dismiss Erin and then bring her back. And I thought that was extremely unfair because parents work, okay? And this is where the school needs to be held accountable. In my day, if the teacher wasn't there or something went on, and my dad was a principal here in this system for 27 years, they'd send the kids to the library or to the study hall. The school was not accommodated to make me, I work out of town, come dismiss my youngster for an hour and then bring them back. It's tantamount to forcing them to listen to some of this gender identity stuff that I really don't think should be part of the school and the education anyway. And I think that needs to be changed. I should not have to come in and dismiss my youngster, okay, if I don't want the youngster that day to hear this outside speaker coming in to, and I Googled that outside speaker, and I did not like what I read about that outside speaker. And I'd like to know, as the superintendent, what the current policy is with regard to this right now.
So it's public comment, not public Q&A for the policy. Okay. You can always email Superintendent Burkhead or myself or anybody with questions you might have.
Okay, so I'm letting, the two of you, and I don't know you, Carrie, but I'm letting the two of you know that that's a big concern of mine. I pay a lot of tax dollars here. Thank you.
and Ms. Brandolini, we do have a hand raised virtually if you would like to take that.
All right, sure thing.
Yep, there we go. Charlotte, if you can just identify as your name, address, and or school you're affiliated with. Thank you.
Charlotte Cody, 118 Kent Street, and I'm affiliated with Scituate High School. I was considering speaking last school committee meeting, but I wanted to talk to the Scituate High School administration and get some, this isn't a Q&A in that, and speaking with them, I should be able to get some answers. I attempted to attend the caregiver coffee on June 17th at 9 a.m. and was not permitted. I made every effort to attend with parents not permitted. I was able to get an audience with two of the administrators and ask my questions, which were related to this year's graduation. I had concerns about previous graduations. Let's say 2020 and 2021. Prior to that, I didn't have an issue. But the previous graduations, what I had seen that concerned me was gender inequality in the graduate speakers at the graduation. And I don't think there's any place for that in a co-ed, pretty much 50-50 graduating class. And if the idea was to combat prior gender inequality, I don't think that's the answer. The way you combat inequality, gender, racial, or otherwise, is your best effort at equality. So that was my concern of previous graduations I had viewed via video. So this year, again, I viewed this year's graduation via video, and I was it was even more concerning. Now, I would say I didn't view the same gender inequality in the graduating speakers, but what I saw was extremely concerning. I saw two of the administrators pull two tables apart, and in the middle of them was a yellow line on the football field. And the graduates were handing the principal yellow ping pong balls. And the yellow ping pong balls were going onto the field. And clearly there's some sort of significance with that. I did ask the administrators who I spoke with, and it wasn't really an acceptable response. It was something about TikTok, and there's got to be a significance to it. And they also claimed it wasn't ping pong balls, which I think was a blatant lie, because I saw the principal take her foot and roll one of the balls from the floor that she was standing onto the field. So in that audience, I had two administrators, and I was getting fraudulent information from them regarding what was being handed, I believe.
I'm just gonna ask you to wrap it up, if you could, kind of give a final statement in terms of that. I think that you're right. It was a student-led. There were rubber duckies that the kids did a senior, kind of almost like senior funny kind of a prank thing with. I don't know that there was any further, personally, I don't know if there were any further significance to it, but so if you want to just kind of give your wrap up, that would be appreciated.
Okay, my point is graduation's about the graduates and not really about making a point that may or may not be relevant. But what I do see in the administration is a power struggle. And I could see it in that, when I spoke to them, I can see it in documentation I have. And I can tell you that all three of the administrators have been inappropriate in front of me and my children. And I could tell you stories that would just—
You don't address
administrators.
Thank you. Any other public comments or come on up?
So I owe 28 Burning Road. I have 3 girls at Cushing Elementary. There's a matter I would like to mention that's very concerning because my family is part of the first responder community. It was brought to my attention that the DEI director, Mr. Adams, has made a video titled "Who Shot You?" which was posted under Grindhouse Recording. In the video, Mr. Adams wears a t-shirt with the word equality on it. However, his words and feelings towards law enforcement are quite the contrary. Some quotes from the video. Praying every day not to get shot. Imagine every blue uniform you see gives you flashbacks of getting shot. Are you tired of this? Imagine, I'm actually tired of getting shot at. Our children are easily influenced at their age. They need to know that they can trust first responders and law enforcement. I would like to know the protocol for children who are chosen to partake on DEI committees or any other committee. My third grade daughter was chosen from her class and taken out of her class, moved to a smaller group of kids to meet with the DEI director. This was done without my permission, without my knowledge. Again, because of the video made by the DEI director, I have concerns, especially because we are a law enforcement family. Transparency is key.
I'm Natalie Wagner, 457 Country Way, and I have 2 at Cushing. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, I attended the school committee meeting, and I was very glad to hear that the confirmed goal of the administration and the school staff was to ensure that all students feel seen and feel safe in the Scituate public school system. I want to urge this committee to consider to take that commitment a step further by confirming their safety from retaliation and harm by issuing a new statement, one in support of critical thinking and on any and all issues, as well as the free speech to express those ideas that they may research, discover, and invent. Allow these students to feel the enrichments of a free-thinking community they are afforded by hard-won heritage in this uniquely special country. Adopt a free speech statement for Scituate public school system community members. Don't let our kids grow up in a vacuum chamber. That's all.
Any hands for the search committee?
Past, I saw on the agenda that the MOAs are on there for the contract.
Correct.
I believe it was 6 years ago or 9 years ago. Rich Hebert sent me a copy of the contract. He wasn't on that bargaining team. Who from the school committee was on the Teachers Association this time?
Myself and Peter.
And Peter. Okay, well, I communicated to Peter the last time my displeasure with the fact that the teacher's contract, they removed the after-school, let's say, mandate that teachers for years here had to stay 20 minutes or a half an hour after school. And whoever was on that bargaining committee gave that up in exchange, and they changed the words to as needed. Okay? I just want to communicate that I don't think that's working, the as needed. My daughter in the 7th grade had problems scheduling after school times with her math teacher. She had a very good math teacher. She didn't want to, not have that teacher. The teacher was very good, but he had commitments after school. And I think the staff, the principals should step in when that youngster needs help and needs it after school. Because Erin was told that she would have to either give up her lunch or do it during music time. And Erin played the flute, so that wasn't an option. And if you saw Erin, she as thin as a red, you know, we weren't gonna give up lunch. It was a 20-minute, 22-minute lunch, okay? And Erin wasn't a morning person, so Ryan Lynch was the principal at the time of the middle school. And I went to Ryan, and Ryan basically said to me, well, I can't make the teacher stay after school. And I'm letting, you know, the board here know that in the future, I think the committee needs to rethink that. And I noticed during COVID, and it's not a good look for the Scituate school system. I'm a graduate of Scituate. Okay, I sent all my kids to Scituate. I didn't send them to, you know, Notre Dame or whatever. And my father was in this system, and I still believe it's a good system. And I wouldn't have sent them there if I didn't think so. But I like to fight from within. I don't want to badmouth Scituate and then pull my kids out and take them somewhere else. I want to fight from within, and that's why I'm here. But I think we need to rethink. During COVID, I know things were different, okay? But I see staff members cutting me off when I'm picking up my kids, okay? And they're leaving before the buses leave. That's not a good look for the superintendent of schools here. And I
understand, I totally understand, and, you know, I will say that we had a really great negotiation process with the STA. Peter and I felt like it was, you know, wonderful, and I think we can kind of answer some of your questions more about that, for sure. So
Right.
Neil,
No, and I know it doesn't happen, but it's gonna happen to some other kids, okay? And I don't feel as though they should have to give up music or lunch in order for a simple thing that we can, you know, take care of. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so business. Have our 2022-23 meeting dates in your backup packet. You look okay. You have okay. I haven't touched the computer, but it's okay with them as well. Eric, did anybody have any questions about meeting dates for 2022-23? Sharing. Okay, nobody had any questions or changes. I will entertain a motion on our 2022 meeting date.
Make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 school committee meeting dates.
I second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, the non-union personnel contracts. Entertain a motion to approve the 2022 non-union personnel contracts.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Motion to approve. Sorry. Motion to approve the non-union personnel contracts for 2022.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and our Scituate Teachers Association memorandum of understanding. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding as presented.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have a motion for the Scituate Teachers Association memorandum of understanding.
Motion to approve the memorandum of understanding as presented.
A second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right, Scituate Teachers Association 2022 to 2025 contract. Okay.
Thank you. So we started negotiating a couple months ago, and a new process called interest-based bargaining. And that's a process where administration sits down with teacher representatives and union representatives and talks about the issues. We have a mediator present, both attorneys are present, and it's more of a conversation back and forth, hard line. We get to the bottom of a lot of issues. It takes a little longer, and it certainly did. I think it was probably this would probably be unanimous case from the administrators tonight. The best negotiations that I've had. It's really hard working, dedicated teachers. Most of mine don't beat the buses out. All of them. I know they do have personal lives and things like that, so I will defend our teachers in that respect. They're hard-working people. We've got great people here. The contract, once approved, is a 3-year contract. It's ratified, once it's ratified and signed and agreed upon, start sharing more details with the community. But I think there's a lot of wins here, a lot of good discussion, and I think this will move our district forward very positively. So I recommend to the committee that we vote to approve the contract between the STA.
I would agree, as I kind of said, I felt that the process was, I'd never been involved in IB before either. I thought it was great. I thought it was, innovative discussions, student, child first from every angle possible, administration, school committee, and union leadership. It was a very good process. I felt. I'm sure Peter would agree. I will entertain a motion to approve the 2022 through 2025.
I will make a motion to approve the 2022-2025 Scituate teacher contract as presented.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right, leadership report, Superintendent Rogers.
So right, so the first thing I'd like to do is give an update on the Jenkins and Cushing principal search. And I'd like to thank all those that were involved in the hiring committee, which was a representative group from both schools in Cushing, Jenkins, community, teachers, administrators, professionals, great representation. And we had a really good, strong interest come to Scituate. The committee came out of that. Ms. Driscoll ran that, so I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Driscoll for running that process. They came forward to me with 2 exceptional candidates that rose to the top. We moved on last Friday on the 17th. The central office team interviewed them and confirmed that they were experienced, highly qualified, and met the profile that the community had put together through our survey. Following week, last week on Wednesday, June 22nd, both candidates visited both schools and then met with me extensively and had follow-up conversations. And at this time, the agreement with contracts, the committee voted on. And tomorrow, as a timeline update, tomorrow there'll be a press release going out to all the both communities and our community at large, introducing the principals at this time. So thank you, everybody. We're extremely excited. I think it's a great time for Scituate, and these two candidates that were only applying here, they wanted to come to Scituate. They want to be here. Their experience and the fits for each of the schools, I think, are just wonderful. So I can't wait for everybody to meet them, and we'll get that information out. Next, more good news: the MSBA process, the new building, Hadley project, Hadley Cushing project, if you will. We advertised requests for services, which are called RFSs, for what's called an owner project manager. And there were 7 responses, which, relatively speaking, is a good number. These are the representatives that will represent us for the whole process, basically picking the architect, designer, running the process, the feasibility study, all that. thank Slim Blum for being on that committee to do that. The responses we got were evaluated by the selection committee on June 16th using predetermined criteria, which were then aggregated. The top 3 were identified and were interviewed this past Thursday, 45 minutes to an hour each. We again evaluated the interviews, rank ordered them, and identified a 1, 2, and 3rd choice. I will say that it was a blind vote, no conversations, and it came out that the panel or the committee interviewing was unanimous to choose a company called Vertex, who has community ties, building a few buildings, including the community building in town, among others. They've got a very good reputation. References were certainly checked. Now the negotiation process begins. Dr. Dutch will be working on that with me, and we'll keep you posted on the update on that is finalized. I also want to thank John Burwood, who's our community representative, local attorney, construction, who was fabulous, Kevin Kelly from the town side as well, Dr. Dutch and I were on that committee. So thank you all, and again, we'll be excited to give out more details once the negotiations are complete with Vertex. More good news, some of the capital money that we've been sitting on for several years is being utilized. The girls and boys locker room in the high school demolition has begun. It's been a long way. It's a 3-phase project. It's very comprehensive. It's going to bring that building new life. The goal is to have that new girls and boys locker room phase 1 done by the end of the summer. When the kids come in, they'll have a beautiful new place to go. Phases 2 and 3 will be giving out more details of that, team rooms and things like that. And basically renovating the whole physical education athletic part of the indoor complex. We're currently working on Wampatuck, looking at the portico and the parking lot, trying to, we've got a person bidding on that. We're working with that company, if you will, to try to get that work done over the summer as well. So a lot of exciting things on the capital that we've been kind of doing there for a while. And we're, thanks to Dr. Dutch for all the time work and our town partners for getting those things rolling. I also want to give a shout out as we ended the year, bringing back a lot of fun traditions that we hadn't been able to have during COVID. Field day being one of them. My first full experience at the Scituate to see different field days. And just a real community effort with PTOs really rallying and organizing those things with other parents and teachers, and administrators. And this year we personally sent out an invite to Thompson to ask the Scituate police to come, and they could. And they showed up in droves, volunteering and working alongside our parents and some of our parents, as you know. It was a lot of fun and a really good time. It's something that just nice to see the kids and the adults, the whole community kind of rallying around and having fun. A lot of smiling faces and a very active day for all. And finally, just a shout out for on this part, Miss Williams' community service class that invited me down, and the parents were there as well. It's a class where the kids really they pick a topic that's of interest to them. They work in small groups and they try to solve that problem. It's mostly the 8th grade civics project we have. So I like the class that 10th graders took. So I just want to thank the kids. I was thoroughly impressed. Most were 10th graders. And so the future's bright for us, and I can't wait to see those projects come to fruition. The last piece of information I wanted to share was a follow-up of our last school committee meeting. Where critical race was brought up. And on several occasions throughout the year, there have been allegations that our school district teaches critical race theory, CRT. At our last school committee meeting, and the first time in my 27 years career as a teacher or administrator, I was pointed at and called a liar. I take this personally, as my integrity as your superintendent is paramount in building trusting relationships with students, staff, families, caregivers in our community. I was accused of making a statement at a Seaside chat that Scituate Public Schools do not teach critical race theory. A worksheet was left as evidence, and we will address later. I state here tonight that we do not teach critical race theory in Scituate Public Schools. I stand by my word and my honor. I will not be intimidated or distracted from the great work we are doing as a Scituate school family and community, unifying each other. As a school district, we have committed to a collaborative and inclusive school culture that values diversity and recognizes the contributions and uniqueness of each learner through love, inclusion, and trust. We strive to instill a deep sense of appreciation and respect for diversity within our schools and create a sense of belonging for all, a home away from home. We know the school community supports this, as evidenced through our recent thought exchange survey, where a top unifying theme ranked number 21 out of 1,647 rates stated this. This was a person taking this exchange that put this up here, and it was voted number 21 as a unifying theme. So the numbers don't lie. We should contribute to, quote, we should continue to promote community acceptance for all in a safe harbor in which all students feel comfortable to learn and grow. Acceptance on all fronts, race, creed, LGBTQ+, developmentally, those with special needs, can only lead to happiness and success among all students, end quote. It is important that we work together, starting with the common goal of doing what's best for each and every one of our students. And it was also, there was some concern about where to go to get your questions answered and to talk about these things. Because public comment is not a Q&A, it's not ideal for having these conversations. So I just wanted to clarify that any questions or concerns, solutions, or even compliments you may have, you may address them at your building level first. We encourage that, whether it's appropriate for a teacher, or for a principal, or other staff member. If not, then central office. One of our staff would be happy to correspond. And then if you're not satisfied, the school committee's job is to oversee my performance. If you're not satisfied with my performance, my answer certainly can go to the school committee. Over the summer, our leadership team is going to take this on as a priority, communication. How can we communicate better? How can we also talk about what's the best way for our community to communicate concerns, questions, thoughts, and comments, and constructive criticism. So those are all things that I think are important. I want to end with a document that was put out by the, I looked this up online, Mass Association of School Superintendents. I'm a member of this, and pretty much all close to 300 of our superintendents across the states are members of this association. They came out with a position statement on K-12 curriculum and critical race theory, which is in line with our own beliefs and values. I want to read it in full. Across our Commonwealth, the issue of critical race theory has been discussed, debated, and questioned. Critical race theory has become the new quote-unquote challenge in education, threatening to distract and derail racial equity, diversity, and inclusion work that is fundamental to strengthening and improving the future of our public schools for all students and families across our state. In the following position statement, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents seeks to clarify what CRT is and what it isn't. We seek to state definitely what we actually do teach and why we teach and why we teach it. Ultimately, MASS seeks through this position statement to open up a broader conversation with all around race, equity, diversity, and inclusion. What is critical race theory, and do we teach it? Simple answer is no, we do not teach critical race theory. Critical race theory is an analytical framework and process that had its beginnings in the 1970s. It is used in higher education to examine structures in society. It is not a curriculum for pre-K to 12. We do not teach it in Massachusetts. Rather, we teach the mass curriculum frameworks for history and social science. But there's a more complex answer to this question, and it involves the character of who we are as a society and who we want to be. What do we teach? We teach the mass curriculum frameworks for history and social science. Since the groundbreaking 1993 Education Reform Act, reauthorized in 2010, curriculum standards have been required in all of the major academic areas, including history and social science. Periodically in 1993, each of these frameworks have been reviewed, improved, and reauthorized. The Massachusetts history and social science frameworks were last reviewed and approved in 2018. The mass curriculum frameworks provide clear expectations for student learning at each grade level for content, skills, and competencies. Concepts of racism, discrimination, oppression, societal biases of all races and groups are historical facts, as well as concepts that are included in our teaching of these frameworks. Any allegation that teaching these historical facts and concepts constitute teaching CRT is inaccurate. Why do we teach what we do? Massachusetts law requires public schools to teach students the history of the United States, including the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. The Declaration asserts that all men are created equal, and democracy values equally all the people. Measuring the gap between principle and practice is part of the study of history. Public schools were created in Massachusetts as early as 1642. We have modified our methods a bit, but still strive to provide students with the tools to learn how to think and analyze facts. To conclude, we reiterate, we do not teach CRT, but we do have a fundamental and moral responsibility to teach history and social science and, in all its truth, the pleasant and the unpleasant. Signed, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. I'd like to just finish up with asking Ms. Driscoll to come up and just address a document that was left for public record last time with some context.
Thank you. So last time we met, it was presented to us that there was a lesson plan that was used in our schools. And it was left here for us to look at if we chose. So of course we want to look at it and examine it. It is not exactly a lesson plan. It looks like it might be a worksheet. And I reached out to the individual who provided this to us to get some context as to what classroom, which child felt uncomfortable, the story for how this was excluded as opposed to included. And when I reached out to the individual, that information was not available. It was said that it was in a civics class at first, and then it was a health class. We don't have the information that this was used in any of our classrooms, when, where, with whom, or anything like that. And again, it is definitely not a lesson plan. But if anybody would like to share any specific experience, like I think we've heard some today, that are relevant and happening, please reach out to your school principal, please reach out to us. We definitely want to know what happens, how kids feel, so we can make sure that this is a place where everyone is welcome and included and can express love.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for following up.
no problem.
I will say thank you again, as Janice said, for following up. I support your plan, Superintendent Burkhead, to increase the clarifying communications to the community. That's very important. You know, I even tonight saw the gender preamble. I've seen that one come up a few times. I think it was clarified on certain levels. But if we need to clarify it again in a school committee meeting in this way, that's okay, as long as we get clarification. I support your goal of doing what is best for all children, as well as, you know, effective and respectfully adhering to the chain of commands, as you mentioned. And that's important that, you know, when a parent gets upset about something or is really concerned, you know, want to get as a parent, obviously I want my answers, you know, as well. And it is important that we go to the, you know, try to put a teacher first and then kind of follow the process. That's really important. Yeah, and I'll just end with a compliment to Mr. Jamil Adams, Marcavius Barnes, and all who participated in the and attended the Juneteenth celebration. It was full of inspiring energy. And I do just want to thank all teachers and staff. We cannot let the day go by without noting it's the last day of school. So thank you all, teachers, staff, parents, everybody who made this year successful. It's been nice to see things like field trips, field days, as Superintendent Burkhead mentioned, plays, performances, dynamic learning environments, children thriving, you know, hugs. I will say, as a school counselor, one of the more interesting pieces of the year was, or the end of the year, I should say, was the fact that even my own kids and kids at work, everybody was so upset and crying. And it, you know, it was because we formed these relationships this year that we were unable to form in the previous 2 years because of, you know, COVID and masks. So I think that speaks to the just wonderful relationships that students have formed with teachers and administrators and school building personnel. paraprofessionals, folks in the lunchroom, bus drivers, everybody in the whole system. I just think it's really so nice to see the wonderful bonds that have formed between our children and yourselves, and we thank you for making this school year one that ended bittersweet, I should say, at least in my own house, so thank you. That being said, move forward, Janice?
I just wanted to actually reiterate what Superintendent Burkhead said, and more importantly, the National Association of School Superintendents, that we teach what the state tells us to teach. So I know people get upset for some things that their students might be learning in class, but we don't have anything to do with curriculum. We're following the state frameworks. So, if there's a framework that you disagree with, it's, take it to DESE, because they're the ones that put up those.
If there's something that,
And in addition,
yeah, I mean, it's
teachers.
it seems bombs are just dropped and then we're acting bombs dropped. Let's have a conversation. If you're concerned about something happening in class, let's reach out to that teacher, let's go talk to people. That's all. I think that's the best first thing. A lot of people are doing that and appreciate that. So we'll continue to learn and listen. I think that's the best way to do things. So thank you.
Leadership report, part B.
Okay, I'm going to invite up Megan Gregory. What we are sharing tonight is the result of a ton of work that teachers and administrators and Megan have done this year to bring to fruition something this district I think has needed for a very long time. We piloted, researched, piloted, and selected common ELA materials for our K-5 classrooms. And Megan's going to share with you the very in-depth process that we went through for the year. I want to thank Megan and our pilot teachers and our principals and everybody who's involved. And I'm going to let Megan take it away. First, I think we should.
Sure. Sure, I'm, K-5.
Great, thank you.
Good? You all see yes?
Excellent.
So thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm thrilled to be here to share all of the work that a huge group of teachers really poured their hearts into over the last few months and thinking about moving forward with our ELA curriculum. So this is really exciting. We started our curriculum review at the beginning of the year, thinking about our strengths and needs in our ELA curriculum in Scituate. We wanted to make sure that we were building on our strengths, and we identified one of our strengths as our K-2 foundational skills instruction. This year, we adopted foundations for phonics instruction for our K-2 learners. And the gaps that we saw as a result of COVID over the last 2 years, I'm really excited to share that the data is coming in and we're closing those gaps. We have effectively closed the gaps that we saw at the end of last year. So these are things that we want to continue with. Our teachers have embraced this explicit phonics instruction. Really, really exciting. This is something we want to continue with and a strength that we want to build upon. Another strength is writing instruction across the grade levels. We put a lot of thinking into this. We want to make sure, again, that we're building upon that strength, the writing instruction happening in classrooms. And the third part is that we're using assessment to drive targeted instruction during midtime, that we're really looking carefully in data meetings and targeting what each individual student needs and forming groups to target those individuals. We do have some needs that came out of this assessment, and we noted that we need some intentional text sets that build knowledge for kids so that kids are reading multiple texts about the same topic so that they get a depth of knowledge in their reading.
We need some connected reading and writing materials and tasks so that reading and writing aren't separate functions, but that we're connecting them and showing the bridge between them because they're reciprocal processes. And then we'd like common texts across grade levels, so common experiences for our students at each grade level. So starting with this, strengths that we want to build upon and the needs that we're looking to fill, we started our curriculum review process by looking at DESE has Curate ratings. They have rated ELA curriculum. And we only looked at curriculum that were highly rated from DESE. So we knew right away the pool that we were looking for were all high quality curriculum. We reached out to reps from those programs to get samples and quotes, and we narrowed them down to 3 programs that fit our needs in Scituate. We sent out a request for pilot teachers to all K-5 teachers, for teachers who would be interested in piloting, to look at what these programs would look like in a classroom. And the pilot teachers were selected to represent a range of schools and grades, as well as job roles. We had special educators, literacy specialists, and classroom teachers. After that, we sent a survey out to all K-5 teachers for input on priorities in Scituate. We know that we were looking at high quality programs. We wanted to find the program that was the right fit for Scituate. That teacher input was used to create a pilot rubric that was specific to us in Scituate. These are the things that we're looking for here in ELA program. We wanted to make sure that reading and writing were integrated. We wanted to make sure that there was differentiation for all of our learners, for our striving readers and for our readers who need to be pushed to be enriched. We wanted to make sure that the kids were engaged and there was cultural responsiveness in what we were reading, that kids can see themselves and see the broader world in what they're reading. We wanted to make sure that there was foundational skills instruction support to build on what's going so well for us, that materials and technology were usable, and that the unit lesson designs were accessible, and that they were something that we could easily fit into our schedule. So there are 24 teachers, which I just really want to take a minute to thank the incredible educators who really spent hours and hours of their time in an already difficult year, coming back from COVID, helping kids fill in those gaps. We have such dedicated and talented teachers in Scituate that gave so much of their time and talent and expertise to dive into these programs and give us their feedback on what they saw, so that we were able to make a really informed decision. As you can see, there were teachers across all 4 schools, across every grade level. There were literacy specialists and special educators. So we had a lot of lenses from which to look at each of these programs that we piloted, which was really exciting. So for each of the 3 programs, we piloted My View, Wonders, and Wit and Wisdom. 1 classroom from each school reviewed the teacher and student materials, and they piloted 1 unit. So in 1 classroom, there were at least 2 teachers who were piloting that, either a special educator or a literacy specialist along with the classroom teacher. So we really had a lot of eyes on the materials. Each pilot teacher received all the materials to teach 1 unit from 1 program. They attended a 90-minute overview training from the company whose program that they piloted. They worked collaboratively with that 1 other educator. In some cases, there were 2 to implement that pilot unit with all the students in their classroom. And then that group met on May 19th on an early release to discuss the pros and cons of each program. And again, I just kind of want to talk about this amazing group of pilot teachers. This was one of the most collaborative discussions I've ever had. Really, people sought to understand more about all of the options that there were and really working together to make sure we found the best program for Scituate, which was super exciting. We asked students for feedback and we reviewed student work, what came out of this, and then each of these teachers filled out the pilot rubric that I showed you before based on their experience. So we had a lot of data.
from these teachers. So this is the pilot teacher feedback, rated in thirds. From the bottom third is low rated, the middle third is rated average, the top third is highly rated. So as you can see, two of these programs had mostly highly rated components from our rubric. The difference between that you'll notice between my view and Wit and Wisdom was in differentiation, that in my view, pilot teachers saw that we were able to support our struggling readers as along with kind of push our accelerated readers, and there weren't as many opportunities for that in the Wit and Wisdom program. We also reviewed for bias using a standardized tool to make sure that there was diversity and representation perspectives. We want to make sure that our kids have windows and mirrors in what they're reading, that they can see themselves and that they can see others. So this was the culturally responsive English language arts curriculum scorecard. Steinhardt and NYU puts this out. All three companies had filled this out for their programs. And so this just shows you all three of these programs really had a broad perspective of characters. So this focused on who were the characters in each of these programs. I know it's a little hard to see from far away, but as you can see from the myriad of colors on the pie chart, we were able to have diverse perspectives of characters from different backgrounds, which was exciting from all three of these programs. We also dug a little bit deeper into that curate system that DESE uses to find feedback from Massachusetts educators who use these programs. So for each of these programs, there was some information for my view. It showed that the selections in grades 3 to 5 had a more diverse range of topics than the characters in K to 2. And there was some concern that the upper grades historical events were not considered from multiple perspectives. For Wit and Wisdom, high quality texts across cultures and perspectives with a little gap in the grade 4 texts. And for Wonders, that the texts in grade K to 2 appeared to be stereotypical, depicting diverse cultures, while 3 to 5 represented diverse characters, but again, limited perspectives for social studies selections. So we really wanted to make sure we were gathering all the information that we could from all the sources across different sources. All educators, all K to 5 educators attended an early release professional session in the Jenkins gym on our early release on May 19th to review the materials from each of the programs, but also talk to the program reps who were there and talk to our pilot teachers. Our pilot teachers were a wealth of information, and it was great that our all educators had a chance to look at the materials and then ask questions from the teachers who knew those materials really, really well. Each of those educators provided anonymous open feedback about the programs, and we really took this into account too, because it's important to think about broadening our perspective. This is a snapshot. I'm not going to read what all of these are. People felt that my view was engaging, student friendly. There were intervention materials for struggling learners, the writing mirrors, the writing workshop that we were using. There was notes on the online tests, mirrors what kids are expected to do on MCAS. People with Wit and Wisdom like the use of trade books, the embedded reading and challenging writing. Some feedback was the workbooks weren't as engaging and it wasn't user friendly. There were a lot of feedback with Wit and Wisdom that it aligns with foundations, which is an important piece for us. Wonders, there was feedback that it was reminiscent of a more traditional way of teaching, and it felt like an old-fashioned Basel series kind of taking a step backwards. There was also feedback that was developmentally appropriate and engaging. So we kind of took all of this into account when we looked at this data. We asked kids, which was my favorite part, kids who were in pilot classrooms from all three programs all said,
Well, that was a lot of work. I had to do a lot of writing, and we said, wonderful, we're so happy. So we're definitely thinking about, we're having kids read complex texts and do some complex writing tasks. So raising the bar for what we're expecting of kids, and we're psyched to hear that some kids said, that was a lot, but they had some great feedback also. We had a kiddo who said, thought historical fiction was just facts, but it helped him see that you're taking real characters and putting them into a situation that could have happened. So the student feedback was great, and we really took a look at student work too. What did kids' writing look like as a result of this? What did kids' critical thinking look like as a result of the reading and discussions that kids were having? So this was a really important part for us. There was a parent advisory committee, which Ms. Brandolini was kind enough to join, and we had a member from each school's parent council there as well. And the feedback from that parent advisory committee was that it's critical that we have differentiation for all learners, that they're engaging in relevant topics, that we're instilling the love of reading, which is something that we're doing so well in our classrooms, and we want to continue with. That we are teaching comprehension from the earliest years, and that there's a quality virtual component, but it's balanced with quality books. That we're not too focused on the online piece, but we're making sure that kids have that opportunity to kind of toggle between both, and that we're focusing on teaching skills and not just teaching to get. So I really appreciate the feedback from this parent advisory committee also. Lots and lots of really great discussions about what our kids need. Taking a look at our cost negotiations, these are the three pilot programs, kind of taking you from the quote we were given at the beginning, at the top, all the way down to the negotiated quote at the bottom. So the quotes in bold, black are, sorry about that, are what Scituate Public Schools would be paying. In red is the total cost, and in green are the free materials that we would be getting. So as you can see, through negotiations, for my view, we started at $577,000, negotiated down to $354,000 with almost $400,000 worth of gratis material. The same with Wisdom from $407,000 to $373,000 with about $260,000 worth of gratis material. So really working with the each of these companies to make sure that teachers would have everything. We were making sure we were being fiscally responsible with our budget as well. For all of these, what's included? All teacher and student materials for all of these quotes, student consumables for 6 years. We will not be paying for workbooks or anything that needs to be purchased yearly. So this is a one-time upfront cost for the 6-year life of the adoption. Online platform access for students and teachers for 6 years. And PD, I kind of showed what PD looks like for each of those three. We wanted to make sure we know that program adoption is only as strong as the professional development that we put behind it. So each of the programs has a little bit of a different approach to what that looks like, but each of them is very robust, and we want to make sure that teachers have all of the knowledge and materials that they need to really be successful with their students. So based on all of this, our recommendation is to go with the Savas MyView for the high quality, diverse, complex texts. There's differentiation for all of our learners, and that was kind of where that one discrepancy was. And we noticed that with the other highly rated program with Wisdom, there weren't built-in interventions for our striving readers, and we really want to make sure we're including all of our students and helping all of our students move forward. There are structures that build upon our strengths and that fill in our gaps. The materials are engaging for our students. It was the most highly rated by our pilot teachers, and our pilot teachers were really the experts. They learned so much about these programs.
we were really excited to be able to have conversations with them more about. So that's our recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? I already asked her 600 questions, so.
So we expect to vote on this tonight?
It's not a share.
Oh, okay, all right.
It was the non-veil.
Oh, I do have one question about the feedback, because if you said it was anonymous feedback, was that given to the companies?
It was given to us.
Okay, and so was any information, any of the feedback you got passed on to the companies providing?
We have not shared the surveys with the companies. I'm happy to share.
I was just curious, because I mean, you know.
I'd like to reiterate, Megan Gregory, our humanities curriculum coordinator, pre-K to 5. This process was super speed. Typically this process would take a year or two. It was such a great need for us to have common materials at all 4 elementary schools that Megan did a spectacular job. That little chart of negotiations, for example, that was something that is not typically or hasn't been done in I don't know how long in this district. And Megan did it like a pro, and that little chart cannot represent how many hours she personally took into communicating with each of those companies. Typically, we wouldn't say to a company, hey, here's what we love about it, because then we lose $100,000 in grants material. So what she did this whole time was work with all 3 companies to make sure we got the most amount of free materials to go with each program, and made sure that she was still managing that pilot process and communication with teachers and with principals so that we could get a snapshot for everybody, but a deep dive with pilot teachers into what each of these are. And I know this feels like a long presentation, but it's been going on all year.
No, I remember hearing about like the 3 different reading. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Mrs. Henry kept me in the loop. Mrs. Henry had my thing. So first, I want to thank you for the presentation. I hope every parent in Scituate and our community members are going to either watch this later or watching now, because to me, this is really opening up the process and showing us as a community that we're not just selecting these things out of the air that you've started. I love the path that you showed, that it was first coming from DESE, and then you had a process that with your expertise through. So I think it's just the presentation alone is such a nice education for our community. So thank you so much for bringing that to us. I also want to attest to the notion that you talked about how the foundations is closing the gap, because I have 2 twins that are benefiting directly from that. So I want to thank you personally for that, which is great. The one question I had was kind of a curiosity. Totally understand the evaluation, love all the data, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, no company can be all things to all students, teachers, and classes. So for example, the pie chart certainly seems to cover diversity in race and ethnicity, right? What I wonder is, what are you thinking about in terms of, obviously there's going to be a need for supplement, right? For other, representation. As a community member pointed out, what I think we want to do in Scituate schools is build student confidence. And to do that, we do need those mirrors and windows. So I'm thinking about neurodiversity, LGBTQIA, even hobbies, like my daughter doesn't just like girl kinds of things, right? So I'm just wondering what you're thinking about in those situations.
Yeah, and so that was kind of, those pie charts, again, it was from a standardized tool.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was, the information we got from there, and we really relied on our pilot teachers who dug into some of it. We had some great feedback from a teacher who looked at Wonders and said, while on the surface, this looks like there's great diversity. In 5th grade, they're learning about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. They're learning about Scorecard. And so really thinking about, can we open up a little bit more windows? We talked a lot about the engagement piece when we talked as a group. And so that was much more qualitative data of, were these materials engaging to kids? Did it, provide some windows and mirrors, but also just kind of look at
kids and that, important piece of the love of reading. So those were more of those qualitative just kind of conversations that we had. We did a lot of the whole program and not just the unit. Piles of boxes in my office for the entire year. So we really did do a lot of digging to make sure that we are all of those kids. All of the new programs really are focused on knowledge building, a focus on reading materials being connected to science and social studies, which is exciting. So there's a balance of fiction and nonfiction. So I'm feeling confident that we're going to have kids who are going to enjoy reading.
Thank you, Megan.
I know I've said this before, because I heard that term before, the windows and mirrors. I absolutely love that, because kids need to not only see themselves, but also see the world. And I just love that analogy.
No, you're good. I was gonna say something else.
Yeah.
I agree that. And I think, again, kind of credit and compliments to Heidi and Megan and every teacher who piloted. I think, it's such a huge feat to have done in such a small window of time, really. But as you said, it was such a high priority, so needed, something we wanted for a really long time. Having all of our elementary schools kind of better aligned and teachers provided with materials that they need. And, I think we talked about it a little bit in the other meeting with the school councils about how there are elements that each teacher is utilizing right now that are fantastic, and we don't want that to be lost either. So I feel like my view allows for us to keep the pieces we love that are working, and then also have a solid foundation that everybody can be behind and all grow together. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. I'm very excited for this for our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Do not have any minutes this evening. Do not warrant. We have our
Next time.
next time. The Mask Summer correspondence is the Mask Summer Institute registration information was in the backup. I think we mentioned that. Any other business? Last thing for us is future agenda items. Our next meeting is July 2nd.
I just wanted to say happy summer, everyone. Long lasting, but I wanted to welcome from our audience. I want to thank, first of all, we mentioned our union leadership. We have 3 excellent union leaders that are moving on, if you will, and not coming back as leadership roles. So I want Eileen Roddy, I know the audience, gracious, and Greg Ranieri. I want to thank you for your dedication, hard work, and commitment. I want to welcome new leadership that's effective July 1st, I believe. Kate Pescatore, Kate Martin, and Liz Swindle. We had a meeting today, both groups, and something like touch, and off to a great start. That relationship is important to the health and welfare of our kids, and that we are, that we're not always going to be able to start off with a really good meeting. And I just wanted to welcome the new leadership and thank the previous leadership for all you've done. A lot of time and effort.
Thank you. It's full time.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, there's nothing else. You adjourn. Aye. Oh, God.